we have been discussing about all the elements of communication skills in the previous sessions, and this is a long series where we will be discussing about all these topics one by one. And each live session that I take, we'll be trying to cover all these points, all these essentials of communication skills. Now, today, our topic is storytelling. Now, are storytelling people, those who are able to tell the stories effectively, are they good communicators? I mean, that's the question we are asking. One day, it was just my curiosity that I just thought, like, those people who are able to communicate well, those who are able to tell the stories, I think should be finding it much easier to communicate. Whenever I see some celebrity or some politician who is delivering a speech or trying to captivate the audience with his speech, most of them are effective because they are able to tell some story, and that too very effectively. And that gave me food for thought, and I just googled that whether are the good storytellers good communicators too, and there was lots of material, lots of content on Google to really go through and read about, try to know more about this skill. So now, if you have the communication skill, and you want to really excel in this field, then storytelling is one more skill that we can add up and then get exceptional results onto it. You must have also noticed that, in case when your friends must have shared some kind of a travel experience with you, a teacher trying to explain some concept with you with the help of some story, or even a speaker on the stage, as I told you the example of the politicians who are on the stage and trying to captivate their audience, or maybe their voters or their supporters, woo their voters. You must have definitely thought about this, that how they are able to do it. So one of the important factor definitely is that you have to have the storytelling skills. Now, this comes to us from our school days. This comes to us from our childhood, and as we grow up, we are getting that ability to express ourselves and then tell the stories, fabricate stories. More we have that capability, the better we are at communicating with the people. And it's very, very powerful. It's very powerful because when you have the capability to cook up stories or fabricate stories, then you can describe things very easily. You can describe situations very easily. And how it helps is, we will be discussing in the uh, further, as I go further onto it. All right. Now, when we let me just take the material that I have. Okay. So those who are able to relate with me, they can write yes on the chat box. Okay. Now, what is the difference between the great speaker and an awful speaker? Now, the great speakers always will have a story to tell. They will always start with a story. You must have seen in the TEDx, the TED Talks, all the speakers, those who have been able to gather more views onto their speech, because they have told their own stories, and they will always start with their own stories. They will refer back to they will reflect upon, they will reminisce about their childhood, their journey all through, and then they will highlight, take the message from it, and then will serve it, and then will speak out that message and try to engage the audience with their fantastic stories. Now, the awful speaker will always omit the stories. They always have this kind of a notion with them that my story, I don't think will be that valuable, and I don't think that my story is worth even telling, worth even talking about. That's what we have to remove from our mind. Our story is unique. We may have heard, or the people, those who are in the audience, may have heard you, or may have heard many people speaking about the story of some celebrity or maybe some business tycoon. They may have heard it because there could be many channels, there could be many people who would have really covered that story. But your story is definitely unique because this is not covered by anybody. You are going to cover it up. You have to cover your story. And this is the difference between a great speaker and an awful speaker. Great speaker will always have the story. An awful speaker will not pay attention to this aspect. So if you want to be a great speaker, if you want to be a communicator, a great communicator, like you have to, you know, be good at it and have your stories listed somewhere. Think about your stories. Think about what you can relate. Give a thought before your event, where you're going to speak, or the discussion you're going to have, or you're going to meet your friend. Your only agenda should be how I can influence them. Now, becoming a master storyteller should be your topmost priority. If you are a storyteller, then definitely your um, communication skills would improve. You can also give the stories while giving technical presentations. And this has been noticed during Steve Jobs' presentations, when how beautifully he used to give the technical presentations with a lot of stories fabricated around the topic that he's going to talk about. Technical presentations generally are very boring. It's very difficult to actually digest those PowerPoint presentations, and then it goes on and on, sometimes for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you're trying to somehow cope up with the situation. But that's not your fault. It's the speaker's fault. It's the presenter's fault, who has been assuming that my thing is very interesting, my presentation is interesting, whereas the case is generally the opposite. People are not getting engaged. They are not getting their hook. So you need to have that in your presentation, and that you can do only when you are weaving a story around your presentation. Give them something extra that they don't know and that they can relate to and can appreciate about, and then you can jump over to your presentation, so that you can do both the things. You have to engage at the same time. You have to also pass on your message, which you are supposed to do through the technical presentation. Now, reliving your story is another aspect. Now, reliving is nothing but when you are trying to make a vivid presentation of your stories, trying to imagine everything. If you're talking about a car, if you are saying the color of the car, the person who is listening to you will start imagining the color of the car. If you say red car, the audience, in the audience, all the people are going to imagine the color red. That's how we are trying to create that interest in the audience by giving them a vivid representation of our story. You Most of the people say that we should be holding on to our emotions. We should not get emotional during the speech. But there are people who share emotions, and then it becomes popular that way. If you notice Oprah Winfrey's, the talk shows, when the guest on a show cries, she also cries. She's getting engaged, and both of them, the host and the guest, are keeping the audience engaged, those who are watching them. Emotion is one kind of an anchor that you need to really throw to catch more and more people towards you. Sharing emotions is not that bad. It's not bad at all. But yes, there's a difference between sharing your emotions and, of course, washing your dirty linen. That you should not be doing. You just don't have to be really very open. So it has to be a controlled one, which is required for your making your speech or making your communication successful. That much it has to be, for sure. You must also talk about the characters in your story. If you have you as a main character and there are many others in the story, you must talk about characters, because then only that vivid representation of the story will work, and it'll be seen through that. People will people will actually try to visualize whatever you are saying. Your audience is going to visualize all that, and this makes you a good communicator. Now, as an example, I'll give you, did you ever do that in your childhood, or when you were growing up, when you visited someplace or you traveled somewhere, you had an experience? Did you ever come back home and then gave a vivid representation of whatever happened all through the day to your wife, to your mother, to your kids? If you're doing that, then you are just on the verge of doing that, or maybe you are already through. So this is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to work on these aspects. I mean, it could be something which we may have not even thought about, but this helps. This helps you in being a good communicator. Remember, when you are in the middle of the story, or when you're telling the story, it's very, very important for you to describe the setting as well. How was the setting? What was around? What was next to the kitchen? What was around the house, if you're talking about your house? That makes it really nice for somebody. It sounds good, and it'll be good to somebody's ears. Now, your speaking stories must contain dialogue, public speaking, and you can always have some homework done already. Have some punchlines done for your speaking. Even when even when you're meeting someone, you can always do that. You can always start off saying that, if somebody is looking good, don't hesitate to say that you're looking good today. Who would not like to listen to such a compliment? You must have certain dialogues when you are having a public speaking of that kind. Now, you should not get diverted from your agenda of the speech that you have decided to go for. You can you can go ahead with your agenda, um, cook stories around, build stories around to create that interest that I was talking about. But ultimately, you have to be very careful not to veer around. You should not be veering off from your designated path or the targeted path where you want to go, the message that you wanted to actually pass on. You should always be at it. You do whatever you want all through to engage the audience, but ultimately come back to the point. And always take care of the time. Take care of the time. Shorter it is, the better. And that's why I also don't want to make it longer. I think you must have understood the importance of storytelling in communication. If you don't have it, you should be building it up. And if you have it, then please know that actually this is an asset for you. Please treat it as an asset. And with this, you will be able to do wonders in the domain of communication skills for yourself. With this, I'm going to stop. Thank you very much for being there. And it was great having you all, and for the patient listening. Those who want to have a communication sessions with me can read the description and can get connected to me. We do have the online sessions, so we make you practice the communication. We make you practice even the storytelling, and give you a better platform where you can actually work on your communication skills and enhance them. Thanks a lot for being there.